Now, here we are with another story, Deep Water, written by William Doughlas. So usually what happens when I begin teaching and as soon as I pronounce the author's name, most students replace the sound of the author's name with the sound, the, Hindi the. So Doughlas becomes So I do not want to take that name because ultimately I am teaching, so you can do. So let us know something about him. William Doughlas was born in 1898. Look at the screen. And died in the year 1980. He was born in Maine. Maine. The word is pronounced as Maine, like lane, pain, Maine. Maine, Minnesota. Second syllable is stressed. Minnesota. So Maine, Minnesota. Pronounce these two words. Maine, Minnesota. Okay. After graduating with a Bachelor's of Arts in English and Economics, he spent 2 years teaching English. Teaching English, it is wrong, so it should be at. It should be at school in Yakima. However, he got tired of this. Tired of what? Teaching. Actually, teaching is really very boring. Lecturing is okay. Now when I am recording this lecture, then it is interesting. But teaching sometimes starts, acting on nerve. So that is why he also must have got bored with teaching. So he spent 2 years teaching at a high school in Yakima. However, he got tired of this. Tired of this means tired of teaching and decided to pursue a legal career. He met Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was the President of America. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the President of United States of America during the Second World War. You can check. At Yale and became an advisor and friend to the President. Doughlas was a leading advocate of individual rights. Yes, in the Supreme Court of United States of America, this name is taken with great honor because William Doughlas scripted a history in series of making new judgments, and he was a great supporter of individual personal rights. He retired in the year 1975 with a term lasting 36 years and remains the longest serving justice in the history of the court. The following excerpt means a part is taken from his book of Men and Mountains, written by William O. Doughlas. It reveals how, as a young boy, when he was a child, William Doughlas nearly drowned in a swimming pool. We will come to see in the story. But keep this in mind. In this essay, he talks about his fear of water and thereafter what happened. How he finally overcame it. Notice how the autobiographical part of the selection is used to support his discussion of fear. So this is something about the author, William Doughlas. And now it is time to move to the central idea of the chapter. So let us move to what this story is going to talk about. Now, after we have discussed the title, something about the author, it's time to understand the theme or central idea of this story. Central idea of this story. Have a look at the first paragraph. So the first paragraph tells us the central idea of this story is the journey of a deep-seated fear of childhood. This phrase needs to be memorized. A deep-seated, not a fear that is sitting on a seat like a chair or a table. A deep-seated fear means deep-rooted fear. Another word, ingrained fear, you can say. So the central idea of this story is the journey of a deep-rooted, deep-seated fear of childhood and overcoming it. The narrator begins with a traumatic childhood incident. This phrase also very important. A traumatic childhood incident. A traumatic childhood incident. An incident that traumatizes, that leaves a very, very deep, negative, devastating impact on you is called traumatic. The word comes from trauma and the verb is traumatize, adjective is traumatic. So the narrator begins with a traumatic childhood incident where he nearly drowned in a swimming pool. This is the crux of the matter. So he nearly drowned in a swimming pool, resulting in an enduring fear of water, enduring long-lasting fear of water that haunted him throughout his life. So all this, each and every phrase is very, very important. This fear, that means the fear caused in his mind because of the traumatic childhood incident in the near drowning incident in the swimming pool. So this fear not only prevented him from enjoying water activities, swimming, canoeing, fishing, these are water activities, but also instilled a pervasive anxiety, pervasive, widespread in his mind and psyche. Moving on to next paragraph of the central idea. However, as the years passed, you can use another phrase, passed by, rolled on, moved on, advanced. So however, as the years passed by or passed, time elapsed, the narrator's determination, strong willpower, the narrator's determination to conquer this fear, this childhood fear, grew stronger. He sought professional help. We will see into the story that he keeps an instructor. So he sought professional help, took swimming lessons, and gradually faced his fear head-on. This is an idiom. Face something head-on means directly, without being afraid of. Through consistent effort, he learned to swim and eventually challenged himself in open water. Hence, there is a very beautiful line towards the end of this story. There is fear. Fear lies in fear itself. So he eventually challenged himself in open water, whether he is afraid or not. When the old terror, that means the childhood fear, resurfaced, means came again in his mind, but was ultimately defeated. So the story underscores, the word underscores means emphasizes, accentuates, highlights, shows, calls attention to. Use any of these words that I have told you. So this story underscores the power of persistence, that if you not persist, it will be wrong sentence. If you persist, if you continue with your effort, personal growth and the triumph of human spirit over fear. It symbolizes the idea that confronting our deepest fears and traumas can lead to personal liberation. So this effort, that means the author's effort to overcome his fear with persistent, consistent effort and eventually challenging himself into open water, right, is the triumph of the human spirit over fear. It symbolizes the idea that confronting our deepest fears and traumas can lead to personal liberation. Liberation means freedom and the ability to fully embrace life. So if you are free from fear, you can enjoy your life the way you like. The story serves as a testament. The word testament means testimony, evidence, proof, will. What other word you can use? To the narrator's resilience, the ability, the strength to recover from difficult situations is resilience. Inner strength, and the transformative impact of facing and conquering one's fears. So, how it transforms you, how it changes you, how it makes you a bold, confident, self-assured person, and you get freedom from your fear that keeps you holding, clutching in its grip. So this is the central idea. I think by now you must have understood what we are going to study in this story. Now, after we have discussed the central idea or theme of this story, it's time to understand this story in detail. And before I take the story ahead, before I begin this story, the discussion of this story, I would like to give you a piece of information. The area where I live is inhabited by a gang of dogs. So if you hear or if you happen to hear one, two gentle sounds, barking sounds of those shareholders of this area, please excuse. And let's begin the explanation part of this story. Let's begin it. So it's easy to understand. I am going to make it easier for you to understand how easy it is to understand this story. Deep water, understanding the story. Look at the first part. The narrator recalls his childhood story showing initial reluctance to go into water. Let us analyze this statement. No? So, look at these presentation parts. William Doughlas recalls being 10 or 11 years old and deciding to learn to swim. So, when he was 10 or 11 years old, he decided to learn to swim. Fine. This paragraph is giving you the details. You can read it later on. So because he decided to learn to swim, there must be some water body. So there were two water bodies in his area. One was the Yakima River and the other was the YMCA pool. He says, so far as the Yakima River was concerned, it was treacherous. Treacherous means dangerous. I have written the meaning over here. You can see the details. Dangerous or characterized by hidden risks. So Yakima River was treacherous or dangerous for learning swimming. His mother often used to warn him against the drownings in the Yakima River. So he found that the YMCA pool was safe to learn to swim. In order to learn to swim, he got water wings so that he could learn swimming with the support of those water wings. But as a child, a 10 or 11 years old child, he was a little shy. He did not want to show his legs. He has written these things. But because he wanted to learn swimming, he could not go in shirts and pants and coat or tie. So the last part is, he swallowed his pride and entered the pool, swimming, showing his skinny legs. Then what happens later on? When he goes into the pool, what happens over there? Let us see in the next heading. And this is the detail of this paragraph. So if you read this detail, this paragraph, pause this video, read it carefully, and wherever I have found that you would be feeling a little difficulty in understanding the phrases, the words, I have given the meaning so that you may not need any other help from anywhere. This paragraph again, the paragraph which is in front of you, you read it very carefully. So the story begins when he recalls his life when he was 10 or 11 years old. But Doughlas takes the story 6-7 years earlier. In this paragraph he says, from the beginning, however, I had an aversion to the water. What does this phrase mean? I have given you the meaning, you can easily understand it. Strong dislike or feeling a repulsion towards the water. So he had strong dislike, or he had strong feeling of repulsion towards the water. Means he did not want to go into the water. What was the reason? He has described it in the succeeding lines. You please read, because you should read it. And this can be the question that can be asked in any examination based on these two paragraphs. How can you say that the narrator had developed a fear of water since his very early childhood? And if you want to speak well, write exam perfect answers, then your answer should look like this as I have written. Now, hope these two paragraphs are very, very clear. Let's move ahead. Let's take our story ahead. Look at this. Doughlas' early attempt at swimming and the misadventure. What happens? So when he is 10 or 11 years old, he goes to the YMCA swimming pool. Always, whenever you are explaining the coming paragraphs, always connect your story with the previous scene, So he goes to the swimming pool and supported by water wings, there in the YMCA swimming pool, he starts learning swimming by imitating, by copying other boys. And slowly and gradually, he starts developing confidence in water. Then one day what happens? This is very, very important scene. I read it directly from the extract from the story. This part is very important. I went to the pool when no one else was there. The place was quiet. The water was still, and the tiled bottom was as white and clean as a bathtub. I was timid about going in alone. Timid means I was hesitant or reluctant to go into the water alone. So I sat on the side of the pool to wait for others. So he is going to the YMCA pool alone when there is no one at the pool, and he sits at the edge of the pool, hesitant, thinking that when some other swimmers, some other children come, he would be entering into the water along with them. Then in the next paragraph he says that I had hardly been there long when in came a big bruiser of a boy. What is the meaning of this phrase? A big bruiser of a boy means this. A big bruiser of a boy is a colloquial expression used to describe a young man who is physically large, strong, and possibly intimidating in appearance. So he was 18 years or so, and he sees that this 10, 11 years old child is sitting at the edge of the pool. So this 18 years old boy is observing that a child, 10, 11 years old child is sitting at the edge of the pool. So he thinks that he is hesitant, he is afraid of water. And then he shouts, that young boy shouts, says, "Hi Skinny, how would you like to be ducked?" So he says that, "Oh, hi, beta, how would you like to be thrown into water?" But this 18 years old young boy does not know that this child sitting at the edge of the pool does not know swimming. So unaware of this fact, he lifts William Doughlas, that 10, 11 years old child, and tosses him into the deep end of water. That was 9 feet deep. And as that child, William Doughlas, then 10 or 11 years old, is tossed into the deep end of water, he understands that the birth of his life is now going to fly from his body. He begins drowning. So he has written here, it seemed a long way down. Those 9 feet were more like 90. Read the paragraph carefully. And I am taking you to further, wherever you feel, please read it line by line, so that, and this is the question that can come based on this discussion. What misadventure did happen with the author? How did he react to that incident? So the misadventure involved a big older boy throwing the author into the deep end of a pool, causing him to panic, struggle, and nearly drown. Please practice your English to write like this. Learning to write is very, very important. And if you have any sample paper, you can practice, or if you want to practice my questions, do send your message. Now, you can imagine William Doughlas, then a 10 or 11 years old child, is thrown into deep end of water and he is drowning. So how does he feel inside the water? Underwater, better word, underwater. Once he is underwater inside the pool, then how does he feel? In this part of the story, he has described his feelings, his fears, his emotions, what went through his mind. So William Doughlas describes his terrifying experience underwater. He tries to jump from the pool's bottom to the surface but fails. Panic sets in and he begins to lose consciousness. He continues to struggle, but eventually begins to succumb to the water. Darkness and numbness take over him, and he let go, surrendering to the water. So in this part of the story, you will find that as he is going underwater, his mind is working. He is planning what he will do, what steps he will take to save his life. So he thinks that once his feet touches the bottom of the pool, he would hit the bottom of the pool and would jump upward, take a spring up from there and come on the surface of water, swim and come to the edge of the pool. But what happens actually? When he comes up, again he goes down. He comes up, again he starts drowning. He comes up, again he starts drowning. So this happens with him 3 times. So he goes underwater towards the bottom of the pool 3 times, and each time he plans what he would do in order to swim to the edge of the pool. But all his attempts to save himself go in vain. And towards the end, if you make a mental picture or you understand what will be this, how much time it would have taken, hardly say 30 seconds to 35 or 40 seconds. How longer can you hold your breath? That would be the maximum time. That would be the maximum time. So in these 35 to maximum 40 seconds, all these things are happening. And finally, he has written towards the end of this part of the story, please read everything. This last line you read. I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell. Means he felt a moment of near death or a moment of intense fear and danger in the water. This question can come in exam, therefore I have given you this question. Explain the expression, I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell. This should be the kind of answer. Now, so we can easily understand how this incident would have affected William Doughlas. This part of the presentation will tell you that. So regaining consciousness and lingering fear and avoiding water. These are the 3. Naturally, if you also happen to be in place of that child, the same kind of feelings and emotions will emerge in your mind also. So when he gains consciousness, when he returns to life, the enduring, the long-lasting, lingering means long-lasting fear gets ingrained in his mind. It clutches him. And thereafter, he avoids entering into water. Whenever he wants to get into water, this incident that took place with him at the YMCA pool keeps haunting him. It haunts him like a ghost, like a bad dream. In this part of the story, he has described this. The next thing the narrator remembers is lying beside the pool after that incident, vomiting. The boy who had thrown him in, that 18 years old boy, apologizes. You will find this written in this part of the story, saying that, oh, he was just fooling. You are fooling. You nearly took that child's life and you say that you are fooling. Others reassure the narrator that they will be fine, he will be fine. The narrator walks home weak and trembling. He experiences a haunting fear and physical weakness for days. The narrator avoids water and loses the joy of swimming, canoeing, and boating. The last point is very, very important. In addition to other changes that take place in him post this incident, he is deprived of enjoying water activities. He cannot go into water for swimming. He cannot enjoy canoeing. He cannot enjoy boating. So in this way, he cannot enjoy his life to the fullest. And this fear let us call hydrophobia, or the fear of water, prevents him, stops him from enjoying his life. And when he realizes that this hydrophobic nature, the fear of the water, is preventing him from enjoying his life to the fullest, then he decides to overcome this fear of water. So what steps, what measures does he take in order to overcome his childhood fear? We will see in the coming part of the story. So let us move on to that part. And here everything has been explained. Stop the lecture wherever you feel stopping. Read it thoroughly, make your notes, and I do not think any question will come from outside once you complete this lecture. So, seeing point number 3, attempt to overcome fear, gradual improvement, and facing the fear alone. Yes. So, in this part of the story, we are going to discuss what attempts were taken by William Doughlas in order to overcome his fear, and then what improvement came in his swimming skills, and finally, once the swimmer says that he has finished, then what action he takes alone. This part of the story tells you. So after years, the narrator decides to learn to swim with an instructor. He undergoes intensive training. This keyword must be used. He undergoes intensive training to overcome his fear of water with gradual progress. He describes the step-by-step process of overcoming his fear through swimming lessons. Eventually, finally, he becomes proficient in swimming, expert in swimming. He becomes capable of swimming. So in this part of the story, we see that once the fear of water starts clutching him, starts, interfering him in enjoying his life, then he goes to an instructor, and the instructor ties a belt around his body, which is again tied with a pulley, and takes him to a pool. And every day, hour after hour, week after week, month after month, the training under the instructor goes on. Gradually, his fear starts slacking, going down. And after 3-4 months, let me show you the month also he has mentioned. So October. So he starts his swimming lessons in the month of October, as you can see here. And then towards, hold your videos, or you can use your book also to read out these paragraphs. And then towards this part, in 4-5 months, he becomes capable of swimming. After that, 6th heading, facing the fear alone, conquering the fear and liberation. Let's see this part. The narrator tests his fear by swimming alone in a pool. He experiences tiny vestiges of fear, but can control it. He continues to swim in various locations, gradually conquering his fear. He swims 2 miles across Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, facing and laughing at the remaining fear. His experience of conquering his fear has deep meaning for him. He feels released and free to embrace life without fear holding them back. Let us discuss these points one by one. So after the instructor tells him that he's finished and now he can go into water and swim, he is finished. And now it is his duty, his responsibility to check himself whether he has really overcome his fear after the instructor's training or not. So he starts going into different water bodies, in lakes, in rivers alone. And whenever he happens to be in those deep waters, tiny vestiges, small amounts of fear, that childhood fear, resurface. But now he can control those tiny vestiges of fear. He continues to swim in various locations, in different rivers, in different lakes, in order to become more and more confident, in order to become independent, in order to check his strength, whether he has finally overcome that childhood fear or not. And slowly and gradually, he realizes that he has overcome his fear. I am showing you the last part of this story. So this is, I am showing you these bold sentences are very, very important because they are explanation. The transformation has given the narrator a new lease on life. Wrong. It should be lease of life. Lease of life. He no longer fears. Let me take you to the last part of this story, this paragraph. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquer it can appreciate. In death, there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death, as Roosevelt knew when he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. Because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, the will to live somehow grew in intensity. At last, I felt released, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. What does it mean? Here it is written. This transformation has given him a new lease of life. Lease of life. Lease of life, allowing him to embrace life's experiences, challenges, and adventures with a sense of liberation and courage. He was no longer held back by the fear that had once paralyzed him. So with overcoming that childhood fear of water, he has been transformed into a new person. And this transformation has given him a new lease of life. And this confidence, the newfound confidence, allows him to embrace, to adopt life's new experiences, challenges, adventures, and a sense of liberation and courage. So he has acquired a number of personal strengths because of this conquering or liberation from this childhood fear. This last part means this. So if you remember this explanation, it will be easy for you to answer everything. And whenever you are answering any question, please keep this recording in front of you and you check from what part of this story this particular question has been asked. Go through this video and write your answer hardly for 10-15 days and you will get mastery over writing skills. And if you want to practice on my material, please text your message and you will be given the material. Now, after we have discussed the story, it's time to go for the summary, and I think you must have understood, but yet let us see the summary. Now, after we have understood the story, I hope you must have understood, and if there is any doubt left, please go back into the video, pause that particular part of the story, read it once or twice, and you can easily understand that part. And even if any doubt is left, then I am showing you the summary. Look at the summary part. So what we see from the start of the story, William Doughlas recalls a traumatic childhood experience. What was that traumatic childhood experience? The incident that took place with him at the YMCA pool, where that big bruiser of a boy had tossed him into the deep end of water when he nearly drowned while swimming in a pool as a young boy. Despite initially being eager to learn to swim, the incident left him with a deep fear of water. So what we see, that after the incident, he was haunted by the fear of water. And this fear, the fear that he developed because of the incident that took place with him at the YMCA pool, this fear haunted him throughout his life, affecting his enjoyment of activities like fishing and boating. Fishing, boating, canoeing, going into water. So that incident of YMCA pool haunted him throughout his life. Then when he realized that he had become hydrophobic and that fear of water was preventing him from enjoying his life, so years later he decided to face that fear. Confront means face. Decided to confront his fear, face that fear and learn to swim properly. With the help of an instructor, we have seen, he gradually overcame his terror by practicing in a controlled environment. Controlled environment, that is, the instructor, put on a belt on him, and then that belt was tied with a rope, and that rope was attached with a pulley. So that is the controlled environment. Such good phrases have been used by me, so I think you should not feel confused. Focusing on different aspects of swimming. After months of rigorous training, beginning from October to say March, April. So after months of rigorous training, the instructor declared him capable of swimming. But the narrator still doubted if he could conquer the fear when alone in the water. So in order to check his confidence level, assess himself. So to test himself, he swam in various natural bodies of water, including a lake and a glacier-fed lake. He encountered moments of fear, that tiny vestiges of fear he has used, but learned to confront and overcome them. Finally, after swimming across a lake and back, he shouted with joy. Towards the end of the story, you will find, means the second last paragraph, realizing that he had conquered the fear of water. Then finally, what happened? The experience had profound significance for Doughlas. So what message, what lesson did he learn from the fear and conquering the fear? As it taught him that there is peace in confronting the fear, and that the will to live can grow stronger. So the central message is, as I have already discussed you, the central message is, if you are suffering from any fear of speaking, fear of writing, fear of, facing public, fear of recording your lectures as I am doing, these fears can be confronted and you can emerge victorious one day if you follow the steps that has been suggested by William Doughlas in this particular extract from his book. Hope you must have understood the summary. And now the next part is for the teachers. Analysis of this story. Now, after we have discussed the summary of Deep Water, let us do the analysis of this story. And as I have already mentioned earlier also, that so far as the analysis part is concerned, it is not required on the part of students. But of course, if you are that deeply interested in learning literature, then you can see this analysis. But this analysis is mainly for teachers who can take help of these elements to analyze any short story. And all these elements have been given in the first lecture, that is the last lesson. So if you haven't collected what are the elements required to analyze a particular story, you can go to that lecture and make collection of all those elements. So let us see plot. What is the plot of Deep Water? Plot is, the story introduces Douglas' childhood experience of nearly drowning and his resulting fear of water. This is the main plot. This is exposition. Rising action. The narrator decides to confront his fear, learns to swim at the YMCA pool, and gradually gains confidence. When does the climax in the story come? The climax occurs when the narrator is thrown into the deep end of the pool by another boy, leading to a traumatic near-drowning experience. So this traumatic near-drowning experience is the climax of this story, falling action. After this traumatic incident, the narrator describes his ongoing fear of water and how it affects his life. He is afraid of going into water, enjoying activities in water. Conclusion. The narrator shares his journey to overcome his fear of water, highlighting the personal growth and liberation or freedom from the fear of water that resulted from his conquest. Now, who are the characters of this story? The main character and narrator is the focus of the story, sharing his personal experiences, emotions, and transformation. So this story is actually a journey of personal experiences that he developed post-traumatic experience of the incident, then his emotions, and then how he got transformed into a strong man after overcoming the fear of water. The secondary character is the older boy, that big brother of a boy who throws the narrator into the deep end of the pool. Now what is setting here? The story takes place in various settings, including the YMCA pool, then the Yakima River, the Ocean Beach in California, and later different bodies of water such as rivers and lakes, where William Doughlas went to assess, to check his confidence in waters. Conflict. What is the conflict of this story? The central conflict revolves around the narrator's deep-seated fear of water. So this is internal conflict. Stemming from means emerging from, originating from a childhood near-drowning incident and his journey to overcome this fear. What is the theme of this story? The primary theme of the story is the triumph of the human spirit over fear and trauma. It also explores personal growth, resilience, and transformative power of confronting one's fears. So once you confront your fear and you overcome that fear, you become a completely transformed, a changed person. What is the tone? The tone shifts throughout the story, reflecting the narrator's changing emotions. It begins with fear and anxiety, transitions to determination and hope, and ends with triumph and liberation. So let me simplify it. So when we are talking about tone throughout the story, then it begins with his emotions, that means fear. Begins with fear when he is thrown into the deep end of water, anxiety, and then transitions. Transitions means change of his personality from fear to determination of overcoming his fear, then hope that he would be able to overcome those fears, and then finally he succeeds in overcoming that fear of water and gets liberated or becomes free, becomes a released person once he overcomes that fear completely. Point of view. The story is narrated in the first person point of view, with the narrator sharing his, it should be his personal thoughts, feelings and experiences. So this story is a collection of narrator's personal feelings and experiences. Symbolism. Water is a prominent symbol in the story, representing both the source of the narrator's fear and his eventual conquest of that fear. So everything is related to water. Foreshadowing. What is foreshadowing? I have already described all these things in the first lecture. So if you do not know what foreshadowing is, you can go to that lecture and see. I have given the entire list of all these elements. The narrator's initial fear and reluctance to enter the YMCA pool foreshadows the traumatic incident that occurs later on in the story. So foreshadowing is the clues, or you can say hints, that an author gives at the beginning of story. Irony. Irony is present when the narrator's attempt to overcome his fear of water at the YMCA pool and ultimately leads to a more traumatic experience in the water. Style. The author employs vivid and descriptive language. So if you see the scenes, you will find that he has created visual imagery all throughout the story. So the tone is shifts from style is vivid description of experiences, and mood. The mood of the story shifts from fear and apprehension to determination and ultimately to sense of triumph and liberation as the narrator overcomes his fear. And finally, in a nutshell, in summary, this story is a powerful narrative of personal growth and resilience as the protagonist confronts and overcomes a profound fear, highlighting the transformative impact of facing one's fear head on. So this is the mood, this is the style. I hope by now this story must have been water-like clear to your mind. If there is any doubt left in understanding this story, please leave a comment in the comment box. I will explain that also. And do subscribe this channel, because all the lectures of all the classes 12, 11, 10, 9 will be presented in this manner only, so that all the students can learn how to present well, how to write well, how to speak well, and moreover how to grow in confidence in presenting their own thoughts and ideas. So hope this story must have been very, very clean and clear. And if you practice my questions, I do not think that within a matter of 1 month, why you cannot score 100% marks in your English. If you want my practice aids, text your demand on the WhatsApp given. And even if you do not want using this video lecture, please learn to present your point of view, learn to present this lecture. It will help you a lot. So it's all from my side for timing. Let us meet in the next lecture.